Now, the liberalism that you talk about, Michael, when you say there's a lot of liberalism within the left today, I would not call it that. So the identitarian stuff that you talk about, the narrowness, that is not an ideological hangover of liberalism. That is a very, very active set of people pushing their material interests.
Right.
The left in the United States is fundamentally and overwhelmingly a middle class formation. It is not it's the first left globally, historically, that has no connection to the working class, to the poor at all. People complain that the left is white. Bullshit. That's a second. The left has those non-whites who are in the American left are all middle class too. It's disproportionately white, but it's all middle class, regardless of its color. In that setting, when you're only bringing in middle class people into your organization, a big chunk of them are going to say, we don't want to hear about poverty. We don't want to hear about the economy. What we want to know is when we walk into a room, why are we not treated well? When we apply for the salaried positions at six figures that we think we have the right to, why do we get 5% less than the other guys? That's what the middle class on the left wants to hear about. It will dress it up in all sorts of historically powerful language and all that. But Adolf Reed has been saying this for a while, and it's only because he's in America that people think this is controversial. In the rest of the world, what Adolf says is just common sense, which is this is a form of nationalist politics. And all nationalist politics has one or the other class character. Either it's a nationalism that's wrapped around the needs of the poor, or it's a nationalism that's wrapped around the needs of the aspiring, emerging elite within the dominated groups. Identity politics is the class instinct of Black, brown, and Asian, yellow, whatever you want to call them, people, and the women. It's not an ideological hangover. It is a very committed and clear set of material interests. And as long as the left remains in the middle class, it will never get out of it.
Welcome to a special 30-minute segment of the Nick and CJ show before RBN Live. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? We are back. Welcome to RBN Live. Our brother JB, he will be joining us here soon. We got a lot of great friends of the show that are popping by. We're going to introduce our guest, Kshama Sawant, here very soon. Also going to have a friend of the show, Wyatt, Reade on. He's going to help us break down the Peru story that I've been watching with great interest. Peru is so damn based. They're out in the street resisting color revolutions and threat to the working class politics. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover the way they address their police state. That's going to be very interesting.
I saw that. It gave me chills. Let me just say that. It gave me chills, Nick.
Yeah. So we have Kshama come back on. Give us a thumbs up, Kshama, if you're ready. But I'll pass it to you, CJ. Just for announcement before we bring Kshama in.
Yes. So of course, this is probably the most requested guest by far in the comments, by far. And we've had her on before, but never in this setting. So this is a special segment here. So let's make sure we like the stream. Let's make sure we build our community through our Substack. Join our Substack so that you can be a part of the community. You get notifications when we go live because you can't depend on YouTube. And eventually when we get back to writing op-eds, we're also going to be writing out of this Substack and hopefully maybe organizing through our Discord too. So join our Substack. You also get access to our Discord. Shout out to Rome sending water to Flint. And that's also something maybe we'll talk about a little bit later, or even address it with Kshama. And that is Rome is out.
I will show you guys this. Sorry,
I'll go ahead. Do that.
I just want to quickly show it, just so you guys all know what we're talking about, because I saw the tweet earlier. This is what our dear comrade Rome is doing. Amazing work for Tour for the Poor. We can only see this expanding as RBN continue to grow, like on a national level. The kind of work that Rome is doing. This is one of the truckloads that he had. This is Rome packing them on. So, man, much love. That's a true leader of the left right there, Rome. So that's fantastic stuff. So, CJ, anything else you have?
No, that's gonna be it. Like the stream, let's get right to our special guest, Nick. I'll pass it back to you for introduction, sir.
Yeah. So I want to introduce our fantastic guest, city council woman that represents Socialist Alternative. Thank you for joining us, Kshama Sawant. Thank you.
Oh, let's unmute you. Okay,
yeah,
there you go. Now you're good.
Hello.
Hello,
Kshama,
welcome.
Yeah,
so happy to have you on. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And the first thing I want to ask you about RBN, we're extremely militant in terms of the direction that the left should avoid. I'm all for this, like, conversations about how we operate, but I know for a fact that the Democratic Party is where movements go to die. Now, you ran as an independent candidate, so for people who are not too familiar with your work, can you explain why you believe it's so important for a left worker class based movement to work outside the Democratic Party? And while you explain that, you also can kind of go over like the vision of the Socialist Alternative and overall critiques of the left, if you want to start with that, Kshama.
Yeah, certainly. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I think the question you've asked, Nick, is a central question really for the left. Without this, it's going to be a non-starter for the left, which is the strategy of tying ourselves, of the workers' movement, of the labor movement, tying ourselves to the Democratic Party. Has that worked? I think it's very clear now, and it's not just to me as a socialist or to you all as socialists, but it really to the wider working class. It's becoming really clear that it is not working to hitch our wagon to the Democratic Party. I think the latest, the debacle with the railroad contract, it's perhaps in the recent years one of the most spectacular and very clear examples of how the Democratic Party, even though they may have differences with the Republican Party, at the end of the day serve the interests of the bosses, of the ruling class, of Wall Street. And so it hasn't worked. And it has been also tried and tested in terms of having self-avowed socialists or progressives becoming part of the Democratic Party. We've seen with the 6 so-called squad members, the nearly 100-strong Congressional Progressive Caucus. At the end of the day, what have they been able to accomplish? It's absolutely not working. And in fact, in the words of AOC herself, in one of the New York Times articles in 2020, I believe, was quoted as saying that I sometimes I feel like my own party sees me as the enemy. Well, to the extent that somebody is truly going to stand up for working people and oppressed communities, yes, the Democratic establishment will see you as the enemy, as the Democratic establishment has seen me and our office and Socialist Alternative, correctly so, as not in lockstep with their agenda. And if you make yourself part of an organization that stands in opposition to the interests you serve, if you serve the working class, then they will try to undermine your agenda, whether you're inside the party or outside. So it makes no sense to be inside that party. If you're fighting the billionaire class, it makes no sense to be part of a party that represents the interests of the billionaire class. And in fact, our job on the left is to clarify the differences between the establishment that stands up for that represents the interests of the ruling class and the very wealthy, and what we need to do in order to stand up for working people is we need to expose what they're doing. So part of the strategy that Socialist Alternative has had in running as an independent socialist is precisely that, to clarify that it's not working for us inside the Democratic Party, that the working class needs a party of our own. And how you accomplish that is not simply by accumulating seats for self-proclaimed socialists. Since we won our first election in 2013, probably 100 or 150 in name socialists, DSA members, DSA candidates have won their elections, but accumulating those positions hasn't achieved anything for the working class as a whole. It's not in name, it's what you do in practice. How you use your position, the way we have used our position in Socialist Alternative, is understanding that it's not about one individual, and it's not You're not going to be in service to the working class if you go into City Hall or in the halls of Congress thinking that those are your colleagues, other elected officials are your colleagues, and you need to compromise and come up with the best compromise. That is not how you win victories. You turn outwards. If you want to fight the ruling class, you turn outward and build movements of working people, of community members. That is how we won the Amazon tax in 2020 in the midst of the George Floyd protest, the historic Black Lives Matter movement, the majority of whom supported our tax Amazon movement. That is how we won the $15 an hour minimum wage in 2014, making Seattle the first major city with that wage. So you win by employing a fighting strategy.
Are you telling me that Ilhan Omar becoming friends with Nancy Pelosi is not delivering victories for the workers? Now, this is the argument that we use. I'm a very scientifically minded person, especially post Bernie Sanders. I racked my mind. I read a lot of theory. I look at a lot of different directions that the left should go. Because at that point, I'm like, all right, this strategy is done. Because if you look at it objectively, ever since the Justice Democrat strategy has started, I wouldn't say the Democratic Party shifted to the right. They continued their march as a right-wing party. The strategy was to get enough members to put enough pressure on the party, and that would force the party to shift their positions to the left. We see the exact opposite happening. You have a record increase the military-industrial complex and military budgets. We see the police budgets being funded more. We're seeing the Democratic Party pushing for funding Israel and escalating war. So I want to ask you this, Kshama. What would you say to the pushback that I get from the SOC Dems? And I mean, like, after the Bernie Sanders campaign, after I worked for them, we had a hard divorce. And it's like I was done with the party. They didn't like that I was done with the party because they argued that, oh, yeah, I know the Democratic Party capitalists. I know they are against our interests, but there's no way that we can actually win with a third party. I know you just gave me some examples of you winning in Seattle, but what would you say? What is your argument to people who say that it's a waste of time to try to build a third party?
First of all, I think we have to understand that it's a waste of time to put our eggs into the Democratic Party basket. That is what's amply clear. And in fact, when Bernie Sanders was first, he was getting ready to announce his first run in the Democratic primary, heading towards the 2016 elections, he and I spoke together on a platform in Manhattan, in New York City, and I urged him publicly to run as an independent. And at that time, he said something along the lines of, well, I don't want to run an educational campaign or something like that, which effectively meant that I want to actually win. I don't want to just run for running's sake. And our response to that is absolutely, we are serious about the working class winning because this is serious business. Workers are subjected to increasing misery in our society, even though this is the richest country in the history of humanity. We have the climate catastrophe at our doorstep. So yes, this is serious. We absolutely need an alternative to capitalism. It's not even just about winning an election. However, the problem with Bernie Sanders running as a Democrat, and Socialist Alternative, and I supported him. To be clear, we strongly supported the working class agenda, the working class demands that he was running on. We disagreed with him on the strategy of running as a Democrat, but we saw what happened where as we had predicted, as Socialist Alternative had predicted, the Democratic establishment was never going to allow Bernie Sanders's political revolution against the billionaire class agenda to win the day in the primary. One way or another, they were going to ensure that he was not going to be the Democratic candidate. And unfortunately, what happened out of that was not only did he not win the Democratic primary, he ended up, that approach ends up actually giving the wrong education.
Yes.
If you don't win, and you also don't set people on the correct path. So in other words, for socialists, for the left, we have to take all of this very seriously and understand that it is never going to be, you're not never going to make any dramatic shifts through one election cycle. But ironically, at the same time, if you want to make those shifts, then you have to make them through building intermittent campaigns. And if you it might sound counterintuitive to a lot of people who are just used to thinking in the Democratic Party box, but as a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. If you don't use a fighting strategy, you don't actually win. I mean, there's so many examples, and I hope we're going to be able to talk about the railroad debacle, because I think that offers such rich lessons, unfortunately. But yes, it does offer such important lessons for us. It shows also from the experience that we've had. I mean, I've been on the city council for nearly 9 years. Every single time that we have won through a defiant and fighting approach, not by putting our faith in the Democrats. Obviously, in the House, we in the U.S. Congress, we have to talk about Republicans and also acknowledge that Republicans are nakedly and publicly anti-worker and anti-working class. On the city council, there are 8 Democrats and me, 1 socialist, and people might believe that, well, it makes sense. You won all these progressive victories in Seattle because it's progressives in City Hall. Well, the city is progressive, yes. Working class of Seattle is very progressive. There's no question about that. But as far as the Democrats on the city council and the NGO leaders and the many of the labor leaders who are tied closely with the Democratic Party are concerned, no, they are not the ones leading on any of these victories. We won $15 an hour despite the open and behind the scenes opposition of the Democrats, and I'm sorry to say even some of the labor leaders. In reality, we were able to win only because Socialist Alternative and the working people and the rank and file union members of some of those same unions where the leaders didn't support us, if we hadn't built the 15 Now campaign and if we hadn't stayed 10 steps ahead in terms of strategy and tactics of the elite, of the Democratic mayor and of the Democratic politicians, we would not have won. The same with the Amazon tax. At every step of the way, it was not only the Democratic, the what you would consider conventionally as the establishment, the more openly pro-corporate wing of the Democrats. It was the self-proclaimed and perceived progressives of the Democratic Party here that fought against us tooth and nail and were colluding with big business behind the scenes in their attempt to defeat the tax Amazon movement. And they were only able to they were forced to concede only when it was clear, because of Socialist Alternative's insistence on a fighting strategy, they were forced to concede that they had to pass a bill in city council, because otherwise, because of our fighting strategy, we had a ballot initiative that had every chance of winning, because we had proven that in the Black Lives Matter protests, we collected 30,000 signatures in favor of the tax Amazon petition. The first 20,000 of them were rapidly collected at a rate of 1,000 signatures a day, because that's how strong the support was of the rank and file BLM activists, and by which I mean just ordinary working people, the majority of them Black, but really a multiracial working class support for this measure. That is how we won. If we had we not done that ballot initiative strategy and built a democratically organized movement that included hundreds and in fact even thousands of people in the fold, we would not have won. Had we had this idea that, oh, we're going to talk to people at the top and try to come to an agreement, no, that would have died a sudden death.
Yeah, I want to see. Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, let me chime in. So I do want to bring in the rail and also just strategy conversation. That's the next time we have you on, because that's the reason I really want to have a sit down off stream conversation about strategy, because RBN is really looking to move this energy more into the community and doing more of what Rome is doing. And I feel like having a conversation with some people, you being one of them, could give us some insight into how to really, approach what we want to do in the community. But to bring in the rail situation that just happened. But first, just to comment on what you said. What's the difference in having 20 years of the Democratic Party not doing anything for you, or 20 years of building up a third party? That's the question I always ask, like, it's not like you're getting anything from the Democrats. So
No,
that's
it's
that.
not, it's worse. It's worse than not getting anything. It's actually is sowing real confusion among genuine working people who otherwise would become clear about which is the way forward. It is also actually engendering a hatred of politics. You know, when every political party betrays you, why would you be interested in politics? And even worse, it's actually playing into the hands of the far right by driving more and more working people towards the far right, even towards Trumpism. I mean, the New York Times is busy writing the political obituary of Donald Trump right now, but actually, we should be very afraid. There is a very dangerous current of the far right, precisely because working people are so disenchanted, obviously by the Republican establishment, because it's very clear they're not on our side, but also by the Democrats. And the more betrayals that the Democrats commit, like the railroad workers, breaking their strike, the more that working people are going to be pushed into the arms of the right wing. I mean, I am surprising maybe to you guys. I'm going to quote David Sirota. I think his article has just been published today. I mean, David Sirota has done more than his share of dogged advocacy of the Democratic Party and defending them when they were when they committed indefensible acts. But even he is saying in his new article called "Fake Populists See a Real Opportunity," he's quoting exit polls and poll analysts who are noting that there is, and I'm quoting the poll analyst who's speaking here, who says there's an impressively large decline in the Democrats' margin among non-white working class voters between 2018 and 2022. In 2018, Democrats carried this group by 57 points. By 2022, that margin was down to 34 points, a stunning 23-point decline. This was even larger than the fall among white working class voters, where the Democrats' deficit ballooned from 20 points in 2018 to 35 points in 2022. In other words, what this is showing is that more and more across racial differences, the working class is seeing through the Democratic Party and understanding that they are not on our side. So in this context, it is really not, it's not excusable for leaders on the left to then keep pushing working people, young people down the Democratic Party track. I mean, we have to be honest and understand that the role of the leader is to be brutally honest. Sometimes working people won't agree with you, but to explain that this is not the way forward. As a matter of fact, we've had many opportunities to launch new political organizations. Bernie Sanders coming out of the campaign could have launched a new party. We had, Socialist Alternative had a petition, a movement for Bernie petition, which said exactly that, and that received tremendous support, even though we are a small organization. So working class people are ready to fight, are ready to embrace this kind of approach where they can actually win some victories. But what's holding us back is not so much the consciousness of the rank and file, it's the leadership that's on offer.
Absolutely. And to kind of piggyback off what you're saying here in the rail struggle. So the little intro video you caught, the last part of what Vivek was saying is that the American, or the US left, I should say, is overwhelmingly made up of, middle class or upper class folks. And that is exactly why the approach of them trying, Ryan Grimm, for example, trying to sell this idea that being a strike breaker is somehow working for the worker. That is, to me, that's so crystallized perfectly what Vivek is saying in the video, that these are the people who make up the left. So that they don't want to hear about poverty. If you caught the earlier part of the video, he's saying they don't want to hear about poverty. They don't want to hear about poor people's issues. They want to hear about different sort of issues. So can you speak to how, I'm just trying to understand, how can anyone at this point, after the debacle of the squad and the progressives, and then the shameless, just illogical logic of Ryan trying to push this, like how can anyone still push this idea of Democrats? I'm trying to say this nicely, as nice as I can, but is a complete failure. I'm just trying to say what is the selling point at this point for this inside strategy? And they have just torn to shreds this Justice Democrat strategy. So if you want to chime in on any part of that or any aspect of that.
Yeah, I think we have to, I'll come to Ryan Grimm in a second, but just in terms of ordinary people, rank and file workers, young people looking to get political and trying to understand, where should we go, what is the strategy to move forward. I think there is a section of genuine working people who probably don't understand yet why there's a need for a third party, or maybe intimidated by it, and then feel that maybe, okay, we should still try with the Democratic Party and so on. So I think our approach towards them has to take into account the fact that they are genuinely mistaken, but they're not coming from a cynical standpoint, and try to build a bridge with them, just explain to them patiently that this is not going to work. There is a concrete example in the way we have won 4 elections in Seattle, and I could not honestly claim that the vast majority of them, or let alone all of them, are completely clear on the need for a third party. But what we did do is reach them, even though they may have illusions in the Democratic Party and they may vote for Democrats in other races. In the race that we ran for four elections, we made it crystal clear to them where their interests lay. That is with us and not with the Democrat who was running against us, whichever the Democrat was. We've had different candidates running against us, but it was all the same story. They all upheld the interests of the wealthy in Seattle in some shape or form. But the way we won the support of people was through explaining why they should go with us, why they should not only vote for us, but also join us in our rallies and protests and come to City Hall, packed chambers, so that the Democrats see that they have a price to pay if they vote against the interests of working people. So we built movements on the basis of concrete demands, and that is the approach the left should use. The leaders on the left have an obligation, especially at this point, to be crystal clear about the role of the Democratic Party and not peddle that Democratic Party line, not waffle all this, dirty break and all that stuff that some leaders in the DSA do. I don't agree with any of that. You have to be very clear the Democratic Party is not working for us. At the same time, understand that you need a respectful and patient approach towards people who may not get that yet, but then try to win them over on concrete issues, because they will fight alongside you on concrete issues, including the question of labor contracts like railroad or UPS, but also on the questions of rent control, taxing big business to fund affordable housing. That is how we won victories, by building unity on the basis of things that working people agree on, while continuing to discuss the things that we don't agree on yet. But that's one part of the story, right? The other part of the story is all the Ryan Grimms of this world. We have to be very clear. They are cynical purveyors. They are snake oil salesmen who are very consciously peddling the Democratic Party support. And, I've seen on Twitter, some people are tweeting like, hey, are you a masochist? Why are you going towards Ryan Grimm? Why are you going to these podcasts if you know that you're not going to get any agreement on these things? But we have to be clear. He's not engaging in some self-sacrifice, and it is not about him. It's about people like him. People like him are determinedly peddling this line, even more so now, because the Democratic establishment recognizes that this is very clear as a betrayal in the eyes of hundreds of thousands, unconvinced, and perhaps even millions of workers. That is why they need their spokespersons everywhere peddling that line to the extent that they're able to push it forward. So they're not engaging in some honest debate in any way. They are very doggedly pushing their line, because that allows the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars and the Pramila Jayapals to then, be behind the scenes, so they don't have to dirty their hands. They have the Ryan Grimms and whoever else to be the punching bag for them. But in reality, there is nothing genuine or honest about it. And their job, the job of these kinds of so-called analysts who appear on all these shows and write all these articles, their job is to obscure the reality as much as they can, even in the face of this spectacular betrayal. And unfortunately, I think we have to say what's unfortunate in this situation is, to the extent that one or two of the worker leaders have provided grist to the Ryan Grim mill by giving them cover. We as workers and working class leaders, we should not participate in the cover of betrayals. We should call out betrayals for what they are, which is betrayals, and not try to hem and haw around it and say, oh, maybe there was something genuine. Oh, maybe it was a Hail Mary. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Nobody thought that the Senate was going to vote yes on paid sick leave for railroad workers. Nobody thought that. This was performative from beginning to end. And I think it's important to look at the numbers as well. The House vote on the rail contract for workers, this is the tentative agreement that was rejected by over 55% of the railroad workers. In other words, the bad contract that the workers did not want. That bill was passed by 290 to 137. The Congressional Progressive Caucus, the so-called Progressive Caucus, I think we have to say at this point, which is chaired by Pramila Jayapal, and the whip of the caucus is Ilhan Omar. That Progressive Caucus is nearly 100 votes. So imagine what the story would have been. It would have been nothing short of rewriting a different course for history had those nearly 100 so-called progressives in the Democratic Party House, had they voted no on the contract, that would not have passed. It would not have passed. They were decisive vote. And so, in other words, it sort of flows. Biden is talking to the bosses, understanding, yes, we need to break the strike. We need this bill to pass. We need this agreement to be forced down the throats of the workers. Then, the next in line lieutenant is Nancy Pelosi, who knows her job. She needs to do this. And so she is then making sure that Pramila Jayapal, who is the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, gets all the progressives in line, and then they march in line. So in other words, this was a betrayal from top to bottom. And what was happening is they wanted the tentative agreement to pass. That was the goal. It had nothing to do with paid sick leave. It's like a magician who engages in a sleight of hand, where the magician does some kind of movement, but the purpose of that move, whatever he does, is not that, but to keep your eyes away from what he's actually doing. That's a sleight of hand. That is what they did. So from start to finish, the purpose of this whole episode in Congress was to pass the bill forcing the bad tentative agreement. That was the goal. How to do it was the question. And so the whole point was for Nancy Pelosi to make sure that all the progressives voted yes on that bad bill. And then in order to help themselves, the progressives, to look like they're actually, maybe they're doing something or they care about the railroad workers, then they have this SOP of the paid sick leave, which everybody knew was not going to pass. One question I want to ask is, do you think that people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who are, just thoroughly determined advocates of the ruling class, who never waver, who are, old hands at this job, do you think they would have voted yes on a paid sick leave if they thought that we had even a ghost of a chance of passing in Senate? No, they would never have jeopardized their main mission, which was to pass the bosses agreement, and they accomplished that. But what the progressives did in the process of that was pass this paid sick leave bill in the House, which everybody knew was going to go nowhere, just so that they could look like they were doing something. So in other words, this was the definition of performative.
Absolutely, Kshama, and we definitely have to do this again. I know, and we appreciate your time that you had with us. I want to pass you to for you to have opportunity to give your final thoughts on the direction of the left, the state of the left, or any final thoughts you have before we send you off. Once again, we gotta do this again. We got so much to talk about, and it was
so
much fire. so much fire coming for you, Kshama, today. So appreciate you for coming on. Any last thoughts you have before we
Yes,
send you
first
off?
of all, yes, absolutely. I'd be delighted to come on the show. I totally agree. There is so much important stuff for us to talk about in terms of building the left. But in terms of going forward, I think we have to make sure that then we learn as the left and as workers. And I hope a lot of workers, not just railroad workers, but also railroad workers. I hope workers as a whole, union members, are watching these podcasts, yours and Brianna's podcast, because this is full of rich, as I said, very crucial lessons for us. And the thing we have to remember, and I hope we are able to talk more about this whole question of, oh, was a railroad strike illegal? Or, next time when you have me on your show, I would like to expand on that. But, moral of the story is the West Virginia teachers in 2018 went out on a wildcat strike, meaning it was a strike in defiance of their own union leadership. And it was technically illegal because it was in a right to work state where striking for them was illegal. They did a short, sharp, successful strike, and they pushed back against the union leadership, not only in going out on strike, but also later when the union leadership wanted them to swallow a behind the scenes agreement that they had made with the Republican-led legislature, a deal that would have divided the the teachers from the non-teaching staff, and the teachers correctly rejected that, and they continued going on strike. So in two different moments, the teachers carried out a historic defiance of their own leaders and of the politicians, the Republican legislature, and they were able to win. So this is the counter example that we have to keep in mind, and I hope we can talk more about this, because
the rail strike is definitely topic number one for the next time you come on here. That is definitely topic number one. So many questions I have written down here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say next year is crucial because it's a UPS strike. I mean, it's a UPS contract. I'm saying strike because I know the workers. I assume strike.
You're foreshadowing. You're foreshadowing.
Yeah, UPS contract and also the contract of the West Coast longshore workers. So these are very crucial contracts. These are workers, just like the railroad workers. They have enormous social power. But the workers are ready to fight, but the missing link is the leadership, and we need to make sure that we have the back of all these workers.
That's my backyard, by the way. The longshoreman. That's literally 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes from here, from where I am. So go ahead. So thank you again for coming on. We'll put you in the back. Thank you so much. I mean, so that's the conversation I've been waiting to have, and we're gonna this to be continued.
Yeah, definitely
so
to be continued.
Let's go and bring on our next guest. Nick, I'll pass it back to you for introductions.
Yes, I'm going to introduce our next guest. Stay tuned, guys. We got a lot of great content. JB is running a little bit late, so our brother James will be joining us here very soon. Our next conversation, we're going to talk about Peru. So we're going to have a hard shift in topic, but I think this is very important. Wyatt, give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. So we're going to bring in amazing investigative journalist, does great work exposing imperialism in the U.S. empire. Thank you for joining us once again, friend of the show, Wyatt Reade. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you coming on. Peru is a country I'm trying to learn more about. You do great work covering. These countries are victims of U.S. aggression. And to get this conversation started, for people who may not be too familiar, you had the coup of Pedro Castillo, and now you had people protesting in the streets of Peru. I have a few things I want to show you guys regarding that and how many Peru activists have reacted to that. But just so people had the baseline information on this topic, what happened to Pedro Castillo, and why are people protesting in the streets of Peru right now?
Yeah, great. Great question. And it's just to start off with, right now we're on more or less the 7th day of huge protests that are taking place throughout Peru. People are coming out by the thousands, and they are calling for this incredibly unpopular Congress to be dissolved. They're calling for new elections to be held, and they're calling for the president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, to be released from jail. He's been kept under lock and key since security forces detained him on December 7th over, quote, the alleged crime of rebellion. And this was after he attempted to block an unprecedented third impeachment attempt in just a year and a half of being in office. by shutting down Congress. This is what he attempted to do. Congress, probably the least popular institution in the country. It has an approval rating of 11%, which is less than half of the approval of the President Castillo. Now major highways have been seized. The airport in Arequipa has been seized as well. That's the second most populous city in the country. Tensions really continuing to grow at this point. We just don't know exactly where these protests are headed. There have been in the neighborhood of 7 protesters killed by security forces so far. And basically it's just tensions just continuing to grow. You know, there's really kind of no end in sight. The current president, the former vice president who has named herself president, Diana Boluarte, has attempted to kind of curry favor with the protests to kind of make them back off by promising new elections in 2024 as opposed to 2026. She basically said, well, even though she hasn't been elected president, she said, I'm going to serve out the remainder of Castillo's term. He was elected in 2021 for a 5-year term. So that means basically she gets to serve 4 years on a 5-year term just because, she was there. That didn't sit well with a lot of the protesters, obviously. And yeah, this headline here is referring to letters that Castillo has been writing from jail. He's made a number of points. First of all, condemning Boluarte for participating in this coup. She accused him of basically fomenting a coup. This is how it's being portrayed in the West. That in
Do you know the politics of Dina? Like, is she like some sort of right wing? Usually, how it goes, because I'm still learning more about Peru. To be clear, usually how it goes is U.S. supports more right wing, capitalist friendly leaders. Yeah. Is that fair to say that about Dina Wyatt?
Well, she resigned from the party, from Castillo's party, from Peru Libre Party. She resigned months ago, and she was always more of a very, very soft, let's say, member of that party. She was never a firebrand, never really kind of that rah-rah socialist. She was always on the right side of the party. Her inclusion in the party is kind of surprising to certain people. And
is there anyone you could, Wyatt? Is there anyone you could, say she's similar to in American? Is she like middle ground, like
when
AOC?
Obama ran in 2008, he pulled Joe Biden in, right? He's trying to curry, he's trying to appeal to a certain demographic by including her on the ballot, and not the indigenous working class pro-union demographic, let's say. And so she immediately went along with the right wing, went along with the Fujimoristas, and condemned a so-called coup, basically setting herself up to be in their good graces and to take over as president. And now is in this position of overseeing the deaths of at least 7 overwhelmingly indigenous protesters so far in just 1 week. She's made kind of public statements condemning bloodshed, but obviously the bloodshed is not coming from protesters. It's coming from the security forces, which she commands.
Yeah, they do the same in America. They will kill the shit out of protesters, tear gas them, use rubber bullets, which is actually still encoded rubber bullets. And then they say we decry the violence at the protest. Mm-hmm. It seems like the same, right?
Right. And this is happening as even the UN has come out and condemned what's happening. They basically, I'll pull up the exact statement here. It was the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Office. They condemned the, quote, unnecessary and disproportionate use of force and the indiscriminate use of tear gas, end quote, by security forces in Peru. And they urged them to, quote, comply with their human rights obligations and allow the population to exercise their rights. But if you go on social media and you look up, Peru protests, you will see very quickly that is not the case. That's not taking place. People are being shot in the streets. There are multiple videos now of either people actually being shot and most likely killed, or just the immediate aftermath where you can see their very bloody corpses. So if you have the stomach to be able to see that kind of thing, it's all over Twitter, it's all over social media. It's not pretty, but that's the reality on the ground right now.
Yeah, I appreciate all that additional context. There's some more stories I'll put up on the screen for you guys, showing the protests in Peru. You guys saw some of the footage in the clip I was showing earlier, and this is the 3 demands of the protesters in Peru. And feel free to jump in anytime you want, Wyatt.
Before you play that, Nick, just a little more background to this that people may not know. Can you talk about U.S. involvement in this what's happening here? Is there any U.S. involvement? And if there is, if you know what that is, if you could tell our audience and tell us.
Almost certainly. I mean, there are very few coups that happen in Latin America without the knowledge of the CIA.
You mean John Bolton may be down there, has something to do with this?
It doesn't even have to be Bolton, right? The CIA, many of them are very liberal, right? They aren't the huge neocons that Bolton is. They view themselves more through this kind of responsibility to protect Samantha Power kind of lens of like, well, we're going to go out and save the rest of the world from themselves. And so, I mean, we know just because the U.S. immediately released this statement, Brian Nichols, who's the Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs at the State Department, put out a statement on Twitter. He said, quote, the U.S. welcomes President Boluarte and looks forward to working with her administration to achieve a more democratic, prosperous, and secure region.
Wait, they didn't say anything about the coup.
He said, we support your call for a government of national unity, and we applaud Peruvians as they unite in support of their democracy. Peruvians united in support of democracy. So that's what they're saying, obviously. This was immediate. In the same way that, the Trump administration just immediately, after the coup in Bolivia, they just immediately had some statement that was ready to go. They were ready to applaud the transition to democracy. The same thing is happening now. Obviously, they had, they were ready for something like this to happen, let's just say. But the U.S. is not the entire region. Countries including Bolivia, Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, and now Honduras are refusing to acknowledge Boluarte as president. They maintain the recognition of Pedro Castillo as the elected, legitimate president of Peru. And Evo Morales, who was himself, I just mentioned this coup, he was forced out of power in a coup that I covered from the ground in November 2019. Just a few hours ago, he wrote on Twitter, too. He said, we join the chorus of defenders of life and human rights to demand that they stop the massacre of our indigenous brothers in Peru, who demand respect for their vote and a democracy that represents them. No government that stains its hands with the blood of the people is legitimate. So very strong condemnation from Morales, who I would say has quite a bit of moral authority in this context, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a few more things I want to ask you. First, I want to say, what's up, JB? What's up, James? You had a great show earlier. I had a chance to catch a little bit of it. What were you guys talking about?
Yeah, so I had Carlos Garrido on from Midwestern Marx. He is a philosophy student as well as teacher. He's also a publisher of a new book dealing with Marxism and dialectical materialism. So we actually had a really in-depth, nuanced discussion, especially about the left and how the left needs to get out of this purity type of sphere of always trying to get the most pure person, and anybody who may be deviant from that we automatically reject them. We have to get out of that in order to be able to build coalitions so that we can actually build the proletariat, so that we can have a more better country just for people, so that we can have our material conditions that are appealed to by the masses. So this was actually a really good conversation. I was learning more things about Cuba because he is born from Cuba, and he was telling me some of the facts dealing with Cuba And a lot of these countries that are more socialist countries, we talked about how that we need to start speaking about the victories of the policies of these socialist countries, even in despite of the blockades and the sanctions that are being done by the Western by the Western nations as well as the United States. So that was also a really good conversation that we had. I cannot wait to have him back on to talk about this, as well as other members of Midwestern Marks. They're a really great
they
group
solid,
of people. Yeah. So, and if you guys want, then here is the link.
Make sure you guys subscribe to JB's channel, man. No one has a more substantive channel than JB. Every day, it's theory, it's hard hitting guests, and education. But I want to get back to Wyatt while we still. Go ahead, JB. Go ahead.
Well, just one thing.
Go ahead.
Hello, Wyatt. Just nice to meet you. This is my first time meeting you, so I never got to meet you before. But nice to have you.
Absolutely,
pleasure's all mine.
We love wholesome interactions here at Revolutionary Blackout. But anyway, I want to show this because I know we both were laughing on this on Twitter. The reactions of the Peru protesters and how they are moving and operating. Now, in the United States, we have a 100% violent police force that will shoot us on sight. But stuff like this is still great to see. You just explained as well, Wyatt, that it's not like Peru police is necessarily gunshot, right? So yeah. I want to show you guys this. Like I said, I tweeted, I was like, how is it even possible to be this base, man? Because if you guys haven't seen this, in Peru, protesters started taking police hostage every time a protester was arrested. Today, they met and did a hostage exchange. Like this.
Let me just put. This is what, when people talk about revolution, that is what it's gonna look like. So, like, if you don't have the stomach for that shit, like this is what Rome talks about. Like this shit, if you don't have the stomach for it, this is what the revolution is gonna look like. Not what Bernie Sanders wrote about in his book. Okay, this. Go ahead. Back to Wyatt. Go ahead.
Yeah, Wyatt, do you want to react to this? Do you have any thoughts? Like, this is extremely base. Probably one of the most base things I've seen this year. Right? Wyatt, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, it shows you just the vast differences between the social movements, the organization that exists in Latin America and in North America. You have an entirely different organizing tradition, one that wasn't completely decapitated by the FBI. In many cases, sure, the CIA was able to destroy kind of the movements that came to power, but they didn't really carve it out the way they did, the Black nationalist movement, different liberation movements where they just came in and just murdered every leader that posed kind of even a vague threat. And so now, you can see the results. People in Peru, and I saw this a lot in Bolivia, where they just have real people power. They have real belief in themselves and each other. They have a real sense of community that hasn't been completely decimated by the government, where people, have come to learn and come to understand that, an injury to one is an injury to all, right? That what you do to my brother, you may as well be doing to me. And that allows for this kind of process where, okay, we're going to do something that could very well get all of us killed, or it could do the opposite. It could give us an opportunity to show some real power and to get our people back. And in Peru, the second is what happened. I'm not as familiar with the individual struggles, the individual movements in Peru. I can't really get into the nitty gritty of how they got to specifically this moment, which unions are involved. I'm not even sure which city that was taking place in, but just the fact that something like this can happen shows you how aware, how conscious the people are, and how ready they are to engage in actions that might bring some serious blowback, but that they see as necessary to take the fight to the next level.
Now you guys see why. I'll pass right to you. But you guys see now why they are desperate to increase police funding in this country, while we have more militant working class movements and anti-government sentiment growing. We need a police force that is more powerful than other countries' militaries by order of magnitude. That you gotta see that's why. That because Peru do not have the insane police state that we have, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know who was gonna chime in, but I'll pass it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was going to bring out, and this was a good comment by Gene, says the issue with the Black Lives Matter protests is that they didn't follow through. It isn't easy to be structured enough and follow through later if your demands are met.
Mm-hmm.
From what it appears to me in these other countries, especially within the global South, that are having this influx of people who are protesting their governments, is that they actually have demands that they stick to in order for people to have the mind and say, no, we're not going to stop until you concede or acquiesce to our demands. And I think that's something that a lot of us are now starting to wake up to, especially those of us who are on the left. And I think that is important for people, journalists like you, Wyatt, who are bringing what's going on in these different countries and showing us, look, this is how they're doing it, right? Remember the song, "This Is How We Do It"? Well, that's basically what we're doing. We're looking to them. And the United States does not like what you're doing. They don't like what Abby Martin's doing. They don't like what Max Blumenthal or Aaron Monte is doing, because you're showing them an alternative to a different economic system and a social order that they don't want us to know about. And so I think this is why I asked the question to all of you who are watching: did you like the stream? Did you subscribe? Are you subscribed to Wyatt's Substacks and his channels and his Patreons? The reason being is because this knowledge, these information needs to get out there to more people so that they realize the power that they really have. And it's not just saying that because we just want more subs and things like that. No, it's the information that is the key in order for people to learn so that they realize their power, so that we can see more revolutions like this out there. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to say that. But yeah.
Well said. And I want to give you, Mike, I know you don't have a ton of time, so
right.
I want to give your kind of final thoughts on this Peru story. So I want to show you guys. Hold on, let me pull it back up. I must have closed it. I want to show you guys that tweet I just pulled up, where it showed that even union organizers are starting to join the march in the streets. And once again, contrast that to the U.S. left that I know always got a bitch and complain, but this is what we stuck with. We have capitalist unions that will side 100% with the administration in these situations. So I don't know if you saw this. Why I saw this earlier today. Like I said, worker unions in Pedro Castillo's hometown, Chota, Peru, had joined the protest against the right-wing coup. Now, you can speak on that as well. I also want you to clarify this as well. Another thing I want to ask before you sign off, because the justification for imprisoning Pedro Castillo was that he illegally dissolved Congress. Now that Congress was trying to remove him from power. So you can speak on that, and also the union protests as well. And also you kind of your final thoughts, because I know you're very limited on time. So we appreciate you. So go ahead, Wyatt.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a lot to get into here. The differences between the unions there and here, like, it couldn't be more stark. You know, we see like the SEIU and, you know, who I call like the AFL-CIA. You know, I don't call them the you know, like, these are unions that basically made an agreement in the same sense that, like, the mainstream, like, civil rights movement kind of made this agreement with, like, the powers that be, that, like, okay, we're going to stop the internationalism. We're going to stop, you know, treating imperialism like a global system, and we're just going to get something nice for people here. And, like, the hell with the people in Africa, you know, whatever, the hell with, like, the international struggle against, you know, apartheid. Like, that's not our thing. And so, okay, you can get some kind of mainstream acceptance because of this, because if you're willing to, like, trample on, you know, the people over there, then, like, okay, you can get along kind of thing. And it's kind of the same, like, it gets replicated in the US with every, like, social movement that gets a little bit of mainstream acceptance. And it's the same thing with, like, Black Lives Matter. I remember, because I tracked, I was there from day one in DC. You know, I was at the front lines on the first day when people are really just like fighting the cops, you know, they're going up against cops, they're pulling barriers. I got like hit in the head with some metal barrier, and I'm like bleeding out on my face and didn't even realize it till somebody came like, "Are you okay?" And I was just, you know, like, I was just hyped. I was like, I've never seen this before. I'm seeing people snatch up riot shields. They must have pulled like 20 riot shields from the cops. They were like pulling cops back, fighting, you know, physically getting in fights with police. I was like, okay, this is very much like the real deal. And then within the week, like, it just got completely neutered, and they sent in, and I assume it was like Mayor Bowser's people, whatever, some kind of Democrat affiliated individuals that just got sent in to basically find the troublemakers, and they would yank them out and hand them directly to the police. You know, I watched some guy, he's pulling up a brick, like he's gonna, you know, throw it at the cops, and they just boom, you know, they looked like plainclothes cops, but I don't think they were. I think they were actual like Democrats from around here, and they just yanked him out, handed him directly to the police, you know. And I remember just watching this, like, oh, we are now watching this die. We are watching this be turned into a total inversion of what it was supposed to be, and it's never going to have any real power behind it again, because now it's been co-opted. You know what I mean? And that's just, I think we don't understand necessarily in the US how strong that force is within the deep state, within the powers that be. But it's incredible. I mean, and maybe you need to go elsewhere in the world to see what it's like where that isn't.
Oh, I'm going to. I'm going to.
To be able to understand, like, oh, you know, this is an organic social movement. This isn't being manipulated by certain interests, certain financial interests. This is what it's supposed to be. And I hope one day we're able to see, you know, what it's supposed to be in the United States. Right now, I'm not the most optimistic person in the world about our chances of doing this tomorrow. But I think, you know, long term, that's kind of where everybody who wants to make a real revolutionary shift in the system here in the US, like, that's where we need to be oriented towards, is a shift in the consciousness and a shift in the understanding, and knowing that, you know, we're not gonna win anybody's liberation by, like, you know, selling out somebody in the next country.
Yes, that is the message that we've been trying to send on this show. You like, that's not what it means to be on the left. It's selling out the global working class. And I was talking about with Kshama after the Bernie campaign. I was doing a lot of soul searching. Like, all right, we can't do it. I don't know what to do, but we can't do this shit no more. That was my mindset after the last campaign. And one of the things I did was look at my brothers and sisters in the global South. Look at other international leftist movement. And once I started doing that more, that's when I really realized how far behind and how much of a joke the U.S. left was looking at our communists and socialists in the global South, looking at the communists in Eastern Asia as well. So once again, I appreciate you coming on, Wyatt. Any last thoughts? Anything you want to plug as well? Always great talking about foreign affairs with you.
No, yeah, thanks again for having me on. It's always a pleasure, and I'm happy to come on anytime. I guess just, you know, follow along if you want to check out more of my work. You can find me on Twitter right here. You have to, like, put the name in directly and hit enter, because if you search for my name, I'm search banned, shadow banned, because I'm Russia State affiliated media. So I'm like totally shadow banned. So you have to go directly to the name. You can find me on Telegram. I have a channel. Just type in Wyatt Reade. I'm on Substack too. And you'll be able to find out what I'm doing, what I'm covering, and get in touch if you have anything that you thoughts about my work or anything you think I should cover.
You know I'm gonna hit you up again. You know I'm gonna hit you up like, hey, yo, why you got what's your opinion on this? That's what I did with Peru. I was like, why? What you get? I'm looking at this Peru things. Why? Tell us what's going on in Peru. But anyway, thank you for coming on again. Always good.
Absolutely, thanks, Wyatt.
So, man, I really love the community that we built at RBN. Having Kshama, Wyatt Reade, spin fire.
Just pop in. Hey, you can stop by. Yeah, it's great. And I mean, don't even talk about Margaret Kimberly. And then some oldies but goodies. We got to probably start doubling back, like Professor.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
I spoke at his class today. Me and Afeni actually spoke at his class.
I wish I had a chance to do that.
And oppression. So he's gonna have us back on. Don't worry. In January, he says he's gonna keep bringing RBN members. All of us, man. This this is it. This is great. What's happening with RBN? This is great. What's happening with our community? Let's take a pause here. I have a short story I want you to chime in on, Nick. It's very short.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you heard of this. LA.
You mind we do
The
super chats
police.
first?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, let's do
Yeah,
announcements.
that'd be your next story. You got the next story.
Next story will be that. Yeah, not right this second. So let's do super chats first, and then we can do some announcements.
Let's start a few of them. So I'll make sure we get to that before we get too powered up. It's always good to do a nice super chat intermission about 1 hour in. Anything you want to say, this is a good time to leave a super chat. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you for the $2, Sean Brock. Only had 30 minutes for Kshama. There's so many things I want to ask Kshama about. There was a suggestion about critical pedagogy, please. Not too familiar with that. But so much things I want to talk about Kshama. You gonna see her on the show?
Yeah, she'll be back.
She'll be back. That was the main thing. There's so many things I want to ask about. Like, I already knew we had 30 minutes, and I had to consider the fact that CJ had to chime in too. So I was like, all right, I gotta make sure I'm very precise.
So it was either take the 30 minutes that she had, or just don't do anything and wait till when we can do an hour or an hour 90 minutes. So it was no, we'll take this 30 and then we'll also wait for
I can't believe I missed her, man.
Make sure you get on there next time, JB. JB was doing
next time. Yeah.
Thank you for the $5, Scott Cove. Can y'all ask Kshama Sawant? I'm about to say Kansas. You guys, I live right next to Kansas, so when I see KS, I think Kansas. I'm like, what? All right, so can y'all ask Kshama Sawant about the cringe? See, that's one thing I wanted to ask about as well, but we just didn't have time. Like, that had to take something to we had to break down.
Ask her about what?
Socialist Alternative was getting into a lot of heat for posting this, and I was gonna. There was something I was considering asking her, but maybe next time, just for a second time. Like, man, there'll be a lot to unpack because this is Socialist Alternative. She says tomorrow. They said this is like 2 weeks ago. Since the super chat brought it up, tomorrow there's going to be a rally at 2 p.m. in Union Square in solidarity with the protesters risking jail or worse in China over rapidly worsening conditions for working people and greater representation from the Chinese Communist Party. And once again, there are a lot of socialists who follow Socialist Alternative. They were not happy with this.
Well, that was which, but this person is saying this is the New York branch of it, or this is the
So they had
I know Kshama's not doing this, is not doing anything like this.
Yeah, that's another reason why.
Not Kshama, but not Kshama.
I haven't heard anything like that from Kshama. It would be good at least to bring it up, like, yo, what are your thoughts on this? But once again, we just didn't have time, and you guys see, like, there's the reaction from our circle, left, anti-imperialist socialists, was not good to this. In regards to Social Alternative repeating U.S. talking points regarding China. You're like, this is another one. So once again, 30 minutes, we didn't have time to ask about that. Maybe that's another conversation. And also, that's not Kshama, so that's why I didn't want to necessarily bring that up. But yeah, we definitely got to talk to someone about Social Alternative about that. But anyway, thank you for super chat. I just want to bring that up for people not aware. Thank you for the $10, Dave. CJ, who is the bearded guy who presents Michael Parenti opinions in those clips you tweet out? Thanks. Do you know what we're talking about?
Oh, that's no non-compete. What's his name? You know, Luna Oi's husband. You know him, non-compete.
Oh yeah, okay.
Maybe you don't know him. Yeah, maybe you don't know him.
I know because I didn't get Luna on. We was gonna do a collaboration.
Dr. Luna Oi's husband, or if you want to do that, you can search it that way. It might be easier because I don't know his actual real name, but his YouTube name is non-compete. So if you want to know his real actual name, just Google husband of Dr. Luna Oi, because we know Luna Oi, and this is her husband. So yeah, that's the bitter guy. He has a YouTube channel. He does videos. Yeah.
Big shout out to Tara Reade. Also got cover the conversation. She was just on Tug Carlson talking about the Biden.
Yeah. That's our main story today. Yeah, so we're gonna cover that. Also, so Tara, thank you for being here.
Yeah, we don't
conversation because we're gonna cover that. Tucker is putting Tara's story back into the public sphere outside of our community, you know. And I want to discuss that. Not only what is said in the interview, which is important, but just like the response is so, it's so weird. People that, I'm for women,
I didn't even see the
and then the
responses.
response
Jesus
they
fucking
get,
Christ.
or liberals, and then it's people in the replying like, this has already been debunked, she's a liar, all the same
Oh,
sort
there
of
was CI people on Twitter. 100%.
all the sort of same like stuff that you've heard. It's just weird.
I see them too, and Tari, and like all these people are like Brooklyn Dad style, like DNC ops. Because Brooklyn Dad, I saw a tweet today. I didn't save it because it's not worth doing the story over. But I saw a tweet that was like Brooklyn Dad made like $150,000 this last year tweeting for the Democratic Party, and Brooklyn Dad was one of the big blue check liberal accounts that was smearing Tara Reade all the time. So essentially, think about this, guys. The Democratic Party was paying social media influencers to smear someone who had a credible rape accusation against the United States president. Think about what that means. That's the party you guys want to reform? It's not like they are ignoring it. No, they are actively paying people to smear Tara.
Right.
And they got this article they pass around all the time. They're like, "Oh, Tara Reade, you shouldn't trust her because we got her landlord on record. Her landlord didn't like her." And they keep spraying this stuff and trying to attack her, but
a parasite doesn't like her. What does that mean?
Like, and liberals show you guys how class loyal they are. They legitimately quoted a landlord to attack a sexual assault victim. But people think RBN is unreasonable when we say we done with these scumbags. You know what? Thank you, Tara. Appreciate you watching. Hopefully you enjoying the show. We got another great conversation. We had Tara on a few months ago. I think I left off here. Let me double check. Yeah, I think, Thank you for $20, Cyril O'Reilly. In the end, even the liberal class would choose fascism over empowering the left wing and organized labor. Quoted by Chris Hedges. Powerful Chris Hedges. Powerful Chris. Thank you for $20, Cyril. Let's see how many we got left. We got one. So 3 more left. Thank you for the 999 Neo. I think Kshama would like the idea of forcing a primary in 2024. What says RBN? Sub NA on YouTube if you want to fix electoralism. Case study just subbed as well. Political matrix. Thank you for 999. I'm not sure how I feel about forcing. Like what I'm not sure what that means. I don't want to throw water on the idea, but I'm not sure what that means. Forcing a primary in 2024. Like for the Democratic Party, I don't think it matters. I'm done with that shit. But I don't know what you mean. That's just my first reaction to that. But thank you for the $5, Sean. Democrats are a waste of time. Zero ability to think critically. We should concentrate on independents and non-voters. Absolutely, Sean.
Yes, nonpartisan.
I'm not focused on hardcore going to Trump rally, Trump supporters. No, that's a waste of your revolutionary energy. We need to focus on the 55% plus of the people who do not sign up to vote.
It's the majority.
I wanted to bring this up when Kshama was on, but I didn't get a chance to intercept this. But you guys know, in a morning Slack console poll, over 50% of American voters say they are ready for a third party. They're ready for a third party. So let's get those people. Why are we focusing on the? And once again, I say like out of the 25% of people who vote Republican, think about the small minority of these people that are going to Trump rallies. I said that for a reason. I'm not dismissing everyone who vote Republican. I'm talking about the nigga that got a Trump shirt on, got a MAGA hat on. He went to 2 Trump rallies. Like that's such a small percentage of the population. Why should we even waste time trying to win those people over? These are questions I keep asking MAGA comments and never answer that. Like it's such a waste of time. Talk to ordinary people who are upset with the system, who are so disinvested with the system, they don't care about political slogan like "Make America Great Again." You know what I mean? We should focus on nonpartisans. I'm glad that you acknowledge that, Sean. We got a base community here. Thank you for $5, Sean. Last super chat, and I'll get to the rest of super chats after near the end of the show. Thank you for $4.99, Sean. Great show. Yeah, look
at that graphic on there. That's a cool ass graphic he has, or he or she or the person has. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost impossible not to have a great show when you have Kshama Sawant followed by Wyatt. I came to the show like, bro, there's no way we can fuck this up.
Yeah, no I had high anxiety. You don't understand. I had
always
because what I had was I had the professor's class that I had to speak. I had to drop my daughter to daycare, talk to the class within 10 minutes. So literally, I had 2 minutes when I sat down. Then it was time for the
I'm glad
class.
we
And
got
right when
someone
I got
there.
off of that, it was time for the show. So let's do some announcements, and then we'll get into a
Let's
couple
answer
of
this guy's
shorter.
question. DJ, you want to
Yeah,
answer
go
this
ahead.
question? You want to
How
answer this
do
question?
your Discord work? Is it paid subs only? No, this is free. Discord is free. We just send you the link. We do ask that you join our Substack. So let me throw that up. So if you want to join our Discord, here is our Substack. Join our Substack.
I also dropped a link on Patreon as well. I'm gonna drop another link.
Yes.
Yeah, I dropped.
I figured out how to email it to everybody. I did that too on that night.
Cool.
I think it was last night, late last night. Maybe it was the night before. I figured out. I went in there and did something and figured out how to email it. So, join our Substack. 2 reasons: if you want to get access to our Discord. The second one is if you want to get notifications on when we go live. Also, in the near future, maybe 6 to 9 months, we will begin to write op-eds through our Substack. So that's going to be another reason why. What I want to do, I'm throwing this idea out there. This is just for discussion. Our community's here. They can hear the idea. We can write on our Substack, but use our Substack like a news outlet. So have Wyatt come in and write something about Peru. We are not experts on issues where he's at. We know somebody that, have them. Hey, can you come write an article on Substack? Yeah, and have us be used as a source. Go ahead.
On that thought, guys, RBN is still young. We had a lot of ideas. I would love to turn our Substack into a gray zone one day. That's far down the line.
Cool.
We talking about long-term goals here, right?
That's 5-year goal.
Yeah, basically our Substack, we're gonna have a website that just like the Gray Zone, we have articles, and then in Gray Zone also have live streams as well. So I got a lot of ideas, guys. This is we got to take it step by step. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that's gonna come. I used to write. That's what I did before RBN. That's how I got started. I used to write Substacks, and then I do live streams. Just talk about what I wrote on my Substack for the most part. So we can see that. RBN is gonna go through a lot of changes in the next few years, especially if we continue to get this support. But go ahead, CJ. I'll pass it back to you. I love that idea.
Absolutely. A couple of more things here. Like the stream, we're at 475 likes. That is awesome. Let's do 25 more. Let's get to 500. Let's get to 500. Now, before we started, or during the stream, actually, this is where we're at, 27,059. The goal is 30,000. Hashtag RBN to 30,000. And that is all the announcements. Did either of you have any announcements before we get into these short stories here?
I'm good.
All right. This is a quick one. You may or may not have seen this, but it's a lot of crazy shit going down in LA right now with the city council. It has even made the news. Where is it at? Right.
I'll be right back.
Oops. Yeah, it is. It has even made the news. And let me show you what I mean. This visual here you see in JB, and I know Nick, I know you can hear. But this visual that you're seeing here is of LA City Council member fighting somebody. Now, just to give you a little backstory, JB, if you haven't been keeping up on this story, so LA City Council had a couple of council members, I think 3, who were caught on video making very racist remarks about Black people in particular. There was a lot of protest that was going on. That also made the news. I did a stream on it. I mean, we did a segment on it. And then 2 of them resigned after all the protests. The main one, who was caught mainly on there saying a bunch of stuff, she resigned, and then the other one resigned. There's still this last one. This last one that's still here is the one that's in this video. And this is where it gets crazy. Now, let me read you the caption. It says, LA City Council member attacks a citizen 2 months after said member exposed in criminal racist conduct by refusing to resign. LA has become Gotham City. It is really crazy. And today was the first day of the new sitting council members elect. So But let's watch this very quick video. It's 10 seconds, but he is the guy. I think he's the one with the Santa hat. I gotta hold on a second. Yeah, he's the one with the Santa hat. Yeah, he's throwing him down. Look. Yeah, I'll turn the volume off. So there's ever since the incident, the racist incident has come out, ever since then, there's been literally daily protests. LA City Council is in shambles. How about we use that? I like that word. Is in shambles. Because it is. And this is the third council member that has not resigned. And this is one of the protesters that protest him every day. And this is him attacking him, JB. Cannot believe it. But it has gotten so crazy that it's gotten to mainstream media and CNN. So I'm going to play you now because first I want to get everybody caught up on the story and then we'll kind of dive more into what's happening. But let's get everybody caught up. Now, where is... Oh, oops. Let me go to my bookmarks. So let me go to my bookmarks and it has these videos that I... Just astonishing that this guy is... And he's still refusing to resign. Still refusing to resign. Just can't believe it. Now, this is just today. Had him on the show today because this is literally happening today, where the first day of the city council. So he kind of had to get out here and try to fix this because he wants to keep his job and they can't proceed with city like duties because there's protests every single day. They have to shut down. So let's listen to what he said. His name is Kevin De Leon, and you'll notice the hashtag is KDL is how he's referred to on Twitter. He's supposedly a Democrat Los Angeles city councilman. So let's watch this segment. It's 2 minutes long.
That will soon be lifted in the city of Los Angeles.
So just so everyone out there understands, and I know you know this, every leader involved in this scandal, either including the now former council president, they've all resigned or are leaving because of the mess that this has created. Why are you not resigning? I know you say you still have work to do, but other members, the points that the council members are making still today about this whole thing is that they say that the city cannot heal if you are still there. And one member saying that your continued presence on the council is causing severe and ongoing harm.
Well, let me say this, Kate, and let me be very clear about this. In a democracy, the voters make the decision, not folks who are in the peanut gallery or political pundits, or even my own colleagues. You know, tens of millions of Americans go to work every single day with folks that they don't like. But you know what they do every morning? They get up and they go to work. And they don't have the luxury, perhaps, of some folks do when they want to walk out. I'm here to do the business of my constituents. And
understand, because I have to interject this, because you might be like, wow, yeah, he's right. He's defending his racist comments. They want him out because he's on tape saying terrible racist things about one of the fellow city council member who adopted these black little kids, calling them all kind of names and wanting to beat them up. They're on video saying this. So his, you know, in a democracy, he's referring to this in protection of his racist comments. It's absurd.
And that's what I've worked for tirelessly. That's what I'm going to continue to do. I can tell you this, and I want to underscore and emphasize the following. If you don't think I'm profoundly sorry, you know, for participating in that meeting, or for not standing up and shutting that meeting down and shutting down the vitriolic comments from then president of the council, who did eventually resign, that's something I'm forever will be sorry for. And that's why I'm having the constructive conversations and dialogue with folks outside the community.
I totally understand, but it wasn't it wasn't just that you didn't stand up. You also took part in the conversation. I mean, in it, you said you compared the young black child of a fellow councilman to being an accessory, like a luxury handbag.
Well, let me give this some context, because one thing I really wish that the media did was provide context and sort of
tell me what context make that comment okay. Let's try it. Let's try it, guys. What context can we come up with that makes any part of that a palatable comment? Like what? I'm just curious.
This is what
any
happens when
guesses?
politicians don't fear the people, man. But go ahead,
Right.
go ahead, JB. But this is shit they do when they know Americans are pacified. It's so ridiculous. Go ahead, JB.
The balls on this motherfucker. The balls to sit here and make a racist remark, an anti-black remark in a city that has a shit ton of black people. And you want to say, well, I need to stay here because of democracy. You know what? Let's keep going. Let's just keep
Absolutely.
going.
So let's finish this short video here, and then I'll add. There's more context. I'm just taking you through it chronologically here. There's more to this, but
more nuance and just general comments. Now,
I mean, I can play it for them, and we don't need to. I mean, let's play. Then let everybody hear what you said. Here, let me play this.
What I wanted to say.
Let's play it.
During Black History Month.
Anyway, it cuts off. The video cuts off there. I did not know, but anyway, let me play you or show you this other part here. Like I said, this is just the beginning of this. There's another part, and let me show you here.
Look, they not only caught him, and they not only caught this dude in Technicolor, they caught this dude in 4K. Man, this shit. And you're like, oh, well, let me put into context. What context do you mean? Like, holy crap, are you serious right now? Like, hold up. Like, it's just like some dude who slaps his wife in the face and like, well, let me provide context. What context can you give us to justify this? Why are you trying to justify something? Look, the words are, I'm sorry I offended the black community. This wasn't my intention. I resign effective immediately. And then go into the private sector because you know you can get a buku amount of money to do it. But for some reason, you don't want to do that because why? Sounds like you want to stay in power for a particular reason.
Yes, and let me show you. That was a case study. So this is really just a preface.
Oh,
because
God.
Guess what Anna's take is on this?
Oh, shit.
No
surprise!
Way. No
surprise!
Way. No way. No, no fucking way. Come on. Come on.
I'm good. No.
Surprise!
CJ. Bruh, are you kidding me right now? You bring in Anna? He's like, let me bring in Anna. Let's see.
So the people over at People City
I'm standing up for this one. Nope, I'm standing up for this one. Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, so the people over at People's City Council, which is a group that does a lot of the on the ground protesting, and you've seen a lot of their work.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of video. There's video of her talking about this. And understand, Jank and her live in LA.
Yeah.
So a lot of the LA stuff, the homeless issue that we have, they don't have very left takes on it. And this is one of the takes. Let me see here. Now, this is not her specifically talking. Hang on a second. Where's that video? Oh, here it goes. I'm sorry, my bad. I didn't go all the way down. Here goes the video. So let me read you the caption. It says she's treating this like a fringe activist position. The LA Times editorial board, the California governor, the CEO of Community Coalition, many, that's a union, locals, the Biden White House, state and LA branches of the NAACP have all called for De Leon's resignation. That's the guy we're talking about. It's an extremely mainstream opinion. That's the caption of this video clip. Now, it's a short video clip, and It may be buried. It's not they haven't clipped this, in other words. I haven't even been able to find the actual footage, but let's see what they have here. It's about 30 seconds, and it says LA council member something with activists. I think this is about
on camera, brawling with activists.
Yeah, okay, so you can see it. So this is about the fight that I showed you. And so she's defending that.
Another thing I want to bring up is, it is fascinating to see how the activists pick and choose who they're going to target and attack. Now, Kevin De Leon was elected into the city council. During these city council meetings where people get to engage in public comment, Latinos living in his district have gone up and said, we don't want him to resign, right? So his term is up in 2024. So essentially bullying him or intimidating him to resign hasn't worked, and they're getting increasingly aggressive with their tactics. Another thing I want to bring up.
Oh my
getting aggressive with racists. Okay. Now, so she's saying because some constituents come out and say it's okay that you are racist to black people, you get to stay, and that's her constituents. That's a good reason. That's what you think. Like as if you can't get, because I saw this, I followed this story. There's several footage when it first started. Hispanic, Latin people, our Latin brothers and sisters in Compton, in this area in LA, who are also calling these people racist and telling them to get the fuck out. So don't cherry pick somebody who's saying the opposite. And this is what Ryan Graham tried to do. With the you just cherry pick somebody who has an opposite opinion so you can say it. But why are you even doing this? Go ahead, Nick. You were going to chime in?
Play the first like 8-9 seconds again. Watch how she starts. Play the first part again.
Another thing I want to bring up is, it is fascinating to see how the activists pick and choose who they're going to target and attack. Kevin De Leon.
Pause. It's almost like these people wake up every morning and they're like, how can we prove RBN correct? What will make RBN analysis of the professional managerial class much more poignant? Let's prove these motherfuckers right every day. This is a member of the professional managerial class. Look at her priority. To wag her finger at activists. Activists. Look at these fucking activists. You can even see the tone in her voice. She don't even consider herself to be part of you guys. I wouldn't even speak language like this. You see how she uses the term? Look at these activists. She do not consider herself to be one of you guys. She is an elite professional managerial class gatekeeper.
Yes.
And these people have the nerve to say Jamie Dore is a right winger. These people are the biggest right wingers in independent media that pretend they're progressive, and not even close. Not even, go ahead, JB. I know you want to go off.
Go ahead, JB.
All right.
This is like unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Okay. So you essentially have a white woman that is saying, never mind what he said, anti-black bullshit that he said. Never mind the fact that everybody basically within Democratic circles are saying that, yeah, he should resign. You're taking up for him. Ms. Kasparian, you're taking up for him. Now, look, if someone who was elected that said something disparaging about Armenians, which you are, and that agreed with the Armenian genocide.
The Young Turks.
Yeah. See where I'm going here? If somebody did that and was discriminatory towards Armenians in their rhetoric, would you still be sitting there saying the same thing? Or let's make it a little bit more, closer to home. If they were saying some misogynistic shit against women, then would you be saying the same thing? You see, here's the thing. Empathy is a very wonderful tool to use when it comes to seeing people's perspective, right? That being said, have you talked to actual Black people about what the fuck that they think that this person said? Are you still going to take up for this person? Are you still going to say, you know what? He's you guys are bullying him. Are you still going to say that? See, that's the thing that you really need to get through your head, Miss Kasparian, is that now you're centering your feelings and wanting to keep this person over us. Because this person, if they're so willing to say things like this, then how do they really feel about us? What type of policies are they really trying to pass within the city of Los Angeles against us? Yeah, I think that you really need to think about this and reconsider this further, because you're literally supporting someone who engages in anti-Blackness. And how do you feel about Nina Turner? Huh? How do you feel about the other members of the TYT that are Black? How do you feel about them? That's a good question. How do you feel about Dr. Cornel West?
Oh, those are the good Negroes.
Oh,
those are the good Negroes.
Yeah,
We're the highly educated.
Yeah,
Highly
those are
educated.
good Negroes.
The best
Yeah.
among us.
We're the uppity Negroes, right?
Yes. All right, we can wrap this up, but there is one more video, not a video, but a little article I'm going to show you. But you say you have another story?
Yeah, I literally just found this, and I literally had to talk about this. This is literally.
Let me just show you one other thing on on this same stories is not. I don't think it's long. Let me see where it's at. It is this one here. Just to give you context, I don't think I'm sharing yet, or am I? Yeah, just to give you a little context of, is this the right one? Same lady talking about Kevin DeLane. I saved a bunch of these, and believe it or not, this is something side. That's Kamala Harris with Montel Williams on the red carpet. I'd never seen that video before.
Oh yeah, I saw
Long before she met Doug Emhoff, she dated some prominent men, including in 2001, former talk show host.
I'd never seen this video
Back
before.
Then, he was the famous one and had to introduce her to the paparazzi.
What?
Now.
So much I want to add. So much I want to say. So much I want to say about that. But this is the other part I wanted to show you right here. Okay, I finally found it. So it's completely out of touch. I've noticed LA Times running cover for activists. So I guess she really has a problem with activists. And like I said, People's City Council are activists, so that's why they're pointing this out. She really has a thing in for activists. Now, who does being against activists serve is my question, because that's the question we always ask here. Who does it serve? If you're against activists, who does that serve? The ruling class. This is 9 seconds. Let's listen.
Everything TYT, like I'll be real short, but everything.
Go ahead.
When you ask that question about everything TYT does, you always reach the same conclusion. Who does it benefit to be against forced to vote? Who does it benefit for you guys to repeat propaganda? Like everything TYT does, it always benefit the Democratic Party and the ruling class. And that's clear to me. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, this is like 8 seconds. Let's listen. She's just bad-mouthing activists again.
According to the Los Angeles Times, which in my opinion never loses an opportunity to provide cover for the activists. That's what I've noticed in their reporting.
Wow. Let me hear that again.
According to the Los Angeles Times, which in my opinion never loses an opportunity to provide cover for the activists. That's what I've noticed.
You know how right-wing you got to be to think that a corporate-owned newspaper runs cover for activists? You know how conservative, Nick, you have to be to think the Los Angeles Times runs cover for activists. I don't know how are we all calling each other left?
Like it's so.
How is that?
so
Go
ridiculous.
ahead. Go ahead. It's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. JB,
We can close this. Yeah, we can close this
Yeah.
after. If you have any comments, go ahead, closing comments. But after that, we can close this. It's absurd what's happening in
And
LA with Kevin, and it's absurd TYT's reaction to this.
TYT is what my last comment is. TYT is 100% an op because Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian are the biggest gatekeepers in independent media. Like if you guys follow the work, I see their tweets all the time, and Cenk, like almost every tweet, Cenk is like, Jimmy's a right winger, Glenn's a right winger. You're not a left winger unless you believe this Democratic Party talking point. Oh my God, this like he's pointing a finger at literally everyone and saying they're secret right wingers. And while he's the champion of progressives. And now the reason why this is particularly nefarious, because you see them run propaganda, you see Anna Kasparian apologize for racist politicians. So what are they really doing? They're here to play gatekeeper for what it means on the left while pushing the progressive movement to the right as far as they possibly can. They want Anna propaganda to be the left position, CJ. That's why they say TYT is on the left. Hell, they won't say it out loud, but when they smear RBN, when they smear Jimmy as right wingers, hell, they probably think because we push back against the police state. So they trying to redefine what it means to be on the left. Defending politicians against activists, Anna Kasparian want to project as being left wing. So that's why what they're doing nefarious. And it's unfortunate it works on so many people. I know TYT crowd had drunk drastically, but still more than ours. Right,
voting for NATO is now left. Voting for NATO, hating homeless people is now the left position according to TYT. But we can move on.
Dude,
unless JB, you had any comments.
JB, do you have a story you want to talk about? Because I leave.
Yeah, the stories that I want to talk about, I have going on next week. So,
okay.
But one
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying one of the things that people need to realize is that this type of rhetoric is indicative of what a lot of the inner workings of the national security state does in order to undermine the left so that we do not gain more steam. This is defanging and declawing the left, and this is really venturing towards the anti-capitalist, anti-socialist type of rhetoric. These are the same people that will say we need to have a country that's a social democracy like Germany, like the Scandinavian countries. Meanwhile, countries like Germany literally have a over 16% poverty rate compared to our 11% poverty rate here in the United States. They are literally going broke because of their capitalist structure. So if that's the case, where in this paradise of social democracy, where is it now? It's tumbling down the drain right now as we speak. So that being said, you have people like them that are stenographers for the State Department that want to keep us within this certain bounds of capitalism so that we don't venture outside of the social order that we have. I'm sorry, but we do not subscribe to the Katzenberg views that you subscribe to. We actually want the proletariat to be the dictators of how things are within our world, because we are literally the poor and the working people. You, Miss PMC, do not have any license whatsoever to tell us what we should and shouldn't believe from your $20 million ivory tower that you're on. So please kindly take several seats, because people like me are suffering because of what you think that we should aspire to. You are one of the ones who are clapping for the police state. You are one of the ones that are clapping for the CIA and the FBI that you work hard and do all the things that they need to do while we are literally suffering under it. Ma'am, please sit down and please start listening to those who are most disenfranchised among us, namely Black people, women, trans, queer, and disabled people, because you clearly do not fit into that sphere.
Well said, JB.
Always.
Oh my God.
Powerful brother JB. Now I'm gonna do the next story. Unless you guys have anything you want to chime in with. Make sure you guys.
No, go ahead. Next story. Go ahead.
Make sure you guys support the Patreon. You can always search Revolutionary Blackout Patreon on Google. I found that you actually get our page instantly if you do that. But also put the link right there if you guys want to drop $3 to support our show so we can continue to do work like this.
Yeah.
Now let's start the next segment. If you vote for the Democratic Party, you are a genocide enabler. That's the message of RBN. That's why we had Kshama on. She agrees, and we told her that we are militantly against organizing within the Democratic Party. She is too, and I'm done.
Me too.
Building coalitions with like the DSA left. That their main focus is building within the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because I'm against genocide. I'm against war.
Me too.
You guys want to see this? you think a lot of progressives are, but they vote for genocide. They vote for Biden Democratic Party despite their support in the genocide in Yemen. But don't worry, we have the progressive hero, Bernie Sanders. He's stepping up to the plate. He can hold his party accountable. Guys, I just saw this. This is an ongoing story. Now, this is from a few days ago. See, this is dated December 10th in Jacobin. Bernie Sanders' Yemen war powers resolution could help end the monstrous war. Now, let me tell you guys something. If you want to praise Bernie Sanders for this, go ahead. Go ahead. But you guys don't know my take on this is? And I said this months ago. What took so long, Bernie? What? No, and I know some people are, oh my God, Nick, you being an asshole. No, guys, Bernie Sanders introduced Yemen war power resolution, this same thing, under Donald Trump in 2019. Why wait 3 fucking years? Why? I'm legitimately asking this question. So
It has everything to do with the powers being switched right now, with the House taking over. Now nothing can happen. So everybody wants to they want a virtue signal. Yeah, I want this now when they know it's not going anywhere. That's what's happening. He's writing a revolution. This is how we run a revolution. Why? Now that you're out of power? What the fuck does this do? But that's what this do, and that's what Jacobin does. They are the magazine for the pseudo left for DSA. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm so happy.
That is so on point, CJ. That's so, and I'm gonna show you guys why. So after the Democratic Party defeated Donald Trump in 2020, they had complete control of the House and they had a tie in the Senate. So wouldn't you think you would propose this right after 2020 election? I am asking you guys this question. Why did Bernie Sanders wait till after the midterms to introduce this? I'm gonna finish my thought past you, JB. It's almost like he didn't want Joe Biden to have the record of ending a genocide on his record before midterms. I don't know. That would seem like to me, right? But JB, what was you about to say?
Oh, Nick, I'm so glad you brought this up, brother. Okay. I'm going to read one of my tweets. Oh, good. I can share. Okay. All right. Y'all ready for this? Nick and CJ, you ready for this?
Go ahead.
Be prepared. Okay. All right. So, I have an analogy. Look at kids. Okay, let's enlarge it so everybody can see it in the back. I said, when the Democratic Party, quote unquote, fights for something for workers, it's like they're playing basketball without a hoop. They can take the shot, but there's no score because there's no hoop. But when there is a hoop, they make excuses as to why they can't even shoot the ball. Because they're with the GOP. They're in concert with the GOP. This is how they do it. They don't take the shots when they literally have a clear open shot to take. This is why Roe v. Wade was not codified into law back in 2008, even though we had the most popular president since FDR. We had a super majority in the Senate and we had a majority in the House, and it could have been a slam dunk, but they didn't. Why? Because it is not in their boss's interest in order to do so. Who's their boss? The same boss of the GOP. It is the central bankers, the bankers, as well as the oligarchs that run this country. So this is why every single time they say, we're fighting for you. Look at the composition of the government. And once you see the composition of the government, it shows that, yeah, they're doing the right thing, but they're doing it at the time where they know it won't pass. But when they do have the opportunity where it could pass, guess what? They ain't gonna do it. So guess what? Then you are sitting there thinking, well, they tried.
It's so
They're
deceptive.
bullshitting you.
Yeah.
It's so
exactly.
deceptive. It's so deceptive. Yeah,
So
it's
you
terrible.
guys, I literally only scratched the surface of the story, guys. So
Oh Lord, Nick.
So let's continue while I was let me continue while I was back because you guys.
Oh, you better not. You about to do another surprise like I did. You about to.
I literally found this.
I
I was preparing this segment while you were doing the last story because I literally stumbled upon this. Watch, look at this. So this is where we left off. So Bernie 3 days ago put the Yemen war powers resolution on.
Okay.
This is Ryan Grimm is reporting this. The White House is whipping against Bernie Sanders' Yemen war powers resolution.
Say it again, Nick. Say it again.
Urging a no vote this evening. Remember I said at the beginning of the segment? If you vote for Joe Biden, live and learn, but it's an objective fact that you did a pro-genocide vote. If you vote for the Democratic Party moving forward, you are advocating for genocide. So how successful is Biden when it comes to whipping the vote against ending the Yemen war? That the entire Progressive Caucus was for when Donald Trump was president. We already starting to see some defectors. Padilla breaks from progressives. What do you mean break from progressive? How can you be a progressive? You guys see how they imply that this guy's a progressive? But let me read the headline. Padilla breaks from progressives. Won't support Sanders' Yemen resolution.
Of course! Of course!
You guys see how vote for the Democratic Party gives them permission to shift to the right?
So you're telling me you're also saying, Nick, is that Bernie Sanders is participating in this charade.
Absolutely.
That's what you're also saying. Go ahead.
So now you see why Bernie Sanders didn't introduce this before the midterms? Bernie Sanders allowed Yemeni children to die for 3 years so you wouldn't make the Democratic Party look bad before midterms. You guys understand that's what happened? You guys understand? Because if this happened before midterms and you have progressive Democrats coming out in favor of the genocide, they knew that would give us another attack on Democrats. They knew that would be something that would hurt the Democratic Party on more progressive-minded people. So Bernie's going to sit on that resolution act that he proposed in 2019. They'll let Yemeni children starve for 3 years to protect Democrats. So let's explain. Let's analyze what's going on here. Now this is from Politico, and I'll tell you, I'm literally going. I found all this shit within this article dropped 19 minutes ago. Well, no, sorry, hour ago. Time zones. Much has changed since Bernie last Yemen resolution push. Of course it did. Now that we got a Democratic Party, now much has changed. And I did a quick look while I was putting this segment together, and I already see the same propaganda. I'm gonna explain to you guys here real quick. And Politico actually addresses this part I'm gonna bring up, but they push it to the side. So now I'm gonna show you guys this. The Senate is expected to vote on another resolution to end the U.S. military involvement in Yemen in about 3 hours. But the enthusiasm is much more muted for this go around than it was 3 years ago. Wonder why? Wonder why? Before interrupt me anytime, guys. Interrupt me anytime. Now I'm gonna explain to you why this next paragraph is bullshit. Because I am seeing liberals repeat this constantly. They lie by omission. They lie by, they will tell you a truth, and they will also lie to you in a blatant way out in open. Now, I'm going to read this next paragraph. That's partly because the level of U.S. involvement in the Saudi-led coalition has already tempered off significantly. And I explained this on the show as well, because Saudi Arabia and the United States started to shift their strategy. and this happened under after Donald Trump left. It said under former President Donald Trump, the American military for a time helped refuel Saudi warplanes and identify targets. So this is Donald Trump, the people that the MAGA communists like, enabling a genocide. This is why we have no patience for people who try to pretend that Trump is anti-war. This is why I have no patience with pretending that there's only one pro-war faction of capitalism. There are dummies, the MAGA communist dummies, they repeat this all the time. Dr. Hassan is one of them. He was like, well, you gotta admit the Republican Party, they're the pro-war party. Nigga, Donald Trump funded a genocide. So anyway, let's move on to the next part of the article. And this is where the propaganda starts. Now, under Joe Biden, the U.S. is focused on defensive assistance. What does that mean? U.S. use that term all the time. So what they're doing, and let me continue here. They say, and providing intel to the coalition. So they are providing intel to a coalition that is starving people. And this is why they're lying. So yes, Joe Biden didn't refuel Saudi warplanes that bombed Yemeni people. But do you guys know, and even you got to dig in this article to find this, the majority of civilians that died in Yemen is because of starvation and the blockade, not because of U.S. A lot of them died because of U.S. bombing, but more, and I'm going to see if I can find the part in the article where they say, because look, you literally had to scroll down. They say here, other experts don't see it this way. And this is the counter argument they put in the article. If it doesn't pass, I think the greater danger is that the Saudis could restart airstrikes and or prevent flights and fuel ships. Most civilian casualties at this point are from insufficient water, food, and medical care. So what does that mean? That means the Biden administration is providing intel and coordinating a genocide. You understand? But they say, oh, well, we're not refueling airplanes anymore, though. But we're going to give intel and we're going to advise and provide assistance for people who actively genocide the people of Yemen. That is what Joe Biden just said. So this is the only, I was trying to see what Bernie's response was.
What's worse, a slow death by starvation or bombs being dropped? Yeah, you think you're better because you think it's better because you're marching kids and people to a slow death?
And that's what majority of the civilian population that died in the conflict came from, as Political-owned article quoted. Most, if you see the picture of the babies, there are babies that look like skeletons all over Yemen. 13,000 Yemeni mothers died, and this is a report that's old because they couldn't feed themselves, so they couldn't produce breast milk, and they couldn't get formula because of the blockade. This is what the United States is supporting, and by the way, Joe Biden is whipping against Bernie Sanders so they can continue that. So what was the response for Bernie? You would think it would take massive public pressure, calling these motherfuckers out by name, rallying their supporters. Nope. Ryan Grimm asked Bernie Sanders about the White House opposition to the Yemen war power resolution. He says, I'm dealing with that.
What?
Where is the anger, Bernie? Where's rallying your supporters to put pressure on Joe Biden? He's dealing with this shit behind the scenes. Oh, no, don't worry about it. I handle it behind the scenes. I'm dealing with that. Are you sure, Bernie? You guys see the lack? This is the toxic positivity that comes from Bernie Sanders. You are supporting a party that funds genocide. But every speech, Bernie will come out and say, Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a sexist. Donald Trump is a misogynist. You say that shit about Donald Trump, but why can't you say that Joe Biden is a war criminal?
Because he's participating in that. Because he's also funding that. You see why he's not going to say that? Because he's helping to fund it. It is absolutely despicable, the fall of Bernie Sanders and what he's doing. This is why he can't show his face on left media. This is why he can't come out here. This is why he can't show. Yeah. It's not that he won't. This is why he can't. He's scared of Kyle. Think what he would be scared of if he saw us. If he saw us, he's scared of Kyle. Kyle can't. Kyle. You scared of Kyle? Blondie. The guy who's a bootlicker who was still licking your boots, even though you had him off his own show.
What did that say about this?
Yeah.
Well, JB, I'm gonna get you in here.
Terrible. Go
JB,
ahead.
we gonna follow this story because the votes tonight technically. So we see, but I'm highly doubtful right now because it seemed like Biden. Like I'm gonna show this part again. I'll get you in for last thought, JB. But here's like apparently Biden is beating Bernie because this is a member of the Progressive Caucus. That's why this article said that he breaks from progressives. So it seems like Biden had more influence on this party than you, Bernie. That what it seems like.
Yeah.
So JB, any last thoughts? And I'm gonna do a follow-up. I'm gonna be on the convo couch tomorrow. I'm sure we might talk about it. I'm definitely gonna do a follow-up after the vote is counted. But this is insane. JB, any last thoughts on this?
Yeah. So the people who may be saying or trying to justify this is like saying, well, I didn't shoot the person with the gun. I just created the conditions for them to be shot, and I'm not calling the ambulance for them to be rescued.
Yep.
So would that person still be complicit in the murder of somebody that was shot while they were standing there? They created the conditions for that person to be shot, and they also didn't call for help so that person's life can be saved. Would you also say that you're still complicit? Absolutely. Even in the court of law here in the United States, that would be the case. That being said, the United States is also by proxy committing a genocide in Yemen in order to continue to be a unipolar world, to increase their hegemony within the West, and as well as continue their cozy relationship with the MBS regime that continues to do horrible atrocities to the Yemeni people. And so for the United States to sit here and posture about this, for the people who are in Congress to not be out in front of cameras and basically railing against the Biden regime is really the height of hypocrisy. They cannot say a damn word about them being anti-war when they are literally sitting by and allowing this to happen, including Bernard Sanders.
Well said. CJ, any last thoughts? I can wrap there unless you have anything else. Because
I'm definitely no last words on here yet. Yeah, but I'm gonna do another story after. I know you got to bounce, but we got to make sure we cover the Tara video at least. So we're gonna play that after Nick give his closing words, closing comments. Yeah. What do you got coming up? Any guests you got to announce? What's happening? What's going on?
Still got some powerful guests coming this week. Still got Aaron Good, fantastic historian, foreign policy analysis. He's joining us on Thursday. And I'm going to be on the combo couch with Fiorella tomorrow. So yeah, you guys see me tomorrow there. I may depending on time, I may do something tomorrow. May not, we see. But that's all I have. I'll see you guys.
All right.
All righty. All right, JB. You're welcome to stay on. I know this might be a story you're very interested in. I don't know if you have to leave or not, but you're welcome to stay if you're able to. All right, so yeah. Let's get to Tara Reade on Tucker Carlson, talking Joe Biden. So this is something to me that is very important to cover because this is you may have thought years ago, JB. I don't know if you thought like once Joe Biden got elected, like, oh man, that's it. Like the whole, what happened with Tara Reade and her situation, like that's it, it's over. But not quite. And she goes on Tucker, not Tucker Tonight, but his other show, and he previews it on Tucker Carlson Tonight. So let's listen to this clip. We won't play the whole thing before we discuss. I'll play a little bit of it and then we will discuss.
So you may have read in the news that Joe Biden just made America a little better by signing the Speak Out Act into law. It's supposed to combat sexual harassment. What you probably didn't read is that Joe Biden himself has been credibly accused of sexual misconduct, and not just by his own daughter, whom he showered with. In the presidential election of 2020, Tara Reade, a woman called Tara Reade, emerged to say that while working for Joe Biden in the U.S. Senate, he sexually assaulted her in a violent way. Most of the media buried the story. And we'll be honest and admit that we didn't know what to think of it. But we finally sat down and talked at great length with Tara Reade to hear what happened. And we were completely convinced that this is real and that she was able to prove it. The whole story is part of a brand new episode of Tucker Carlson today, but here's part of it.
Now, before we get to the interview, let's just put it right on the open. Do I think Tucker Carlson is some sort of advocate for women's rights and survivors? Absolutely not. Is Tucker Carlson using this particular instance maybe because this is a Democratic thing and a change of power and investigations are coming up, Hunter Biden, all of this stuff? Absolutely. So, but that doesn't mean we don't take the opportunity like Tara did here to go on and get her message out about this story and the despicable person that Joe Biden is. So I just wanted to make sure I chimed in on that part. Did you want to also chime in on that point, JB, before I go back to the video?
Yeah, this goes to the point of, look, we are deeply cynical about where, Tucker Carlson, because the thing is that we all know that Tucker Carlson speaks and is a stenographer for oligarchs. Hell, he is the heir to an oligarchy. His actual name is Tucker Carlson Swanson because he's an heir to the Swanson food empire. So it's not lost upon us to know that Tucker Carlson really is just a cheerleader for U.S. imperialism, U.S. capitalism, and the empire. But that being said, here's the thing. Even if it's anti-Democrat, which he basically is, which is basically bullshit because they all are within the same party, the thing is that at least Tara's story is getting out there to show that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are one and the same. So that's the thing that needs to happen. And I believe Tara Reade, and I know many of you believe Tara Reade because her accusations are very deeply credible. So with that being said, this story needed to get out. I don't necessarily, even though I don't like the apparatus that's being used to get the story out, the main point is the story is getting out. So I want to congratulate Tara Reade for getting her story more pushed out to the forefront.
Absolutely. All right. So now let's hear what she said on the show.
When Biden started acting weird towards me, he would put his hands on my shoulder and put his fingers underneath my hair and do weird things like that. And then there was a scene where...
What did you think of that? I mean,
Well, bear in mind, and you were around and a professional in the 90s, it was a different... I don't know if you were in DC, but it was a different vibe.
In DC, yeah.
Okay, that was a different vibe, but it still was weird. I'd never had an employer do that. And Panetta certainly didn't act like that.
No, he's not like that.
No, not at all. And he's just all business. And, Joe Biden was always, he didn't seem like an intellectual giant. Let's put it that way.
Right. No, he was famously not.
Yeah.
But a charismatic and warm guy. That was the
yeah. And that's the thing. Behind closed doors, he was very temperamental.
Really?
And he would do this thing where he smiles when he's angry. It's very disconcerting. Very disconcerting, that big smile, and but he'd be angry, and he was very temperamental. He had me up against a wall, and he penetrated me with his fingers against my will. And I, it wasn't just the assault though. It was everything to do with, here I am, this young staffer, and he did this, and then I made him angry. And that's like someone you don't want to make angry. Because I said no.
I just think it's, I got to be honest, one of the reasons I didn't know what to make of your story was I've been a man for, 53 years.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anything like that. Like that's, men are kind of piggish, as we know, and they do piggish things. But that's
You calling him out on his BS, JB?
Yes! I'm a man for 53 years and I've never heard of that. Bullshit.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. crew cut looking
especially the
motherfucker.
circles
Look,
that-
you
especially the circles he's
know,
running.
there have been some nasty ass men that have been around you. What have you been doing, Tucker? I'm not saying anything. But the thing is, like, dude, you've known there's some men that have done some vile shit, or you've been around men, or you've heard of men doing some vile shit, and you're older than me, bro, and you're telling me you've never heard of it? That, Tucker, come on, man.
None that he can speak of. Maybe that's a better way for him to put it. None that he can speak about on camera.
That's like
continue.
kind of great. I mean, that's like so.
Go ahead, JB.
By the way, for anybody that wants to defend Donald Trump, I'm sorry, anybody that's against Donald Trump, especially when he said grab them by the P word, Joe Biden literally did it.
Yes.
And she's telling you he did it. And you guys went to sleep on him? Are you kidding me right now? Come on. Donald Trump is reprehensible. But Joe Biden literally did it. And somebody said that he actually did it. And you guys are saying, oh, well, he's the best president we can get. He's the best. He's the lesser of two evils. When he did the exact same evil? Please go ahead.
No comprende. Doesn't understand. I don't understand. No comprende.
Bounds that it's weird to think someone would do something like that.
It was just, it happened all at once. It happened really quickly. There was no like flirtation with him or anything like that. It was very, he was usually with people and he wasn't. I was like at the wrong place, the wrong time, so to speak. And when it happened, he at first was like, come on, man, I heard you liked me. And I froze. And then he said he got angry, and that's when he smiled, that smile.
That sounds so totally Joe Biden. That sinister smile. It's on I think it's on one of the clips we uploaded yesterday. That sinister smile. There's another one when he was younger.
And that's what was really jarring. And then he pointed his finger in my face and he said, you're nothing. You're nothing to me. And then I must have had a certain look on my face, and he just took my shoulders and shook them. He said, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then he turned around and walked away. And I remember it was just such a jarring, shocking incident. Probably was all of less than 5 minutes, right? But my vivid memory is sitting on these marble stairs, and my legs were shaking so badly because it wasn't just what he did. It's that I knew my career was over. That was it. Like I had said no, it was an awful thing, and this was the end. He used his power and resources to silence me. And I'm going to share something with your audience. They took a cannonball to my life.
Yeah.
They went after my family. Mm-hmm. So when he did that assault, he took my future. I didn't want to sleep with some senator. I wanted to be one. And that day, it ended.
The cruelty she describes, not just an unwanted advance, not just the sexual violence, but the meanness to her from Joe Biden and from his staff and from people throughout the Democratic Party will just absolutely blow your mind. It's really offensive to anybody, not on partisan grounds. Just as a human being, you can't believe people would act that way, but they did. So we called the White House and we asked them for comment on what Tara Reade told us. Of course, they didn't respond. You can watch the whole interview tomorrow morning on Fox Nation.
Yeah, man, that was the teaser for it, and when he says tomorrow, that was today. So I believe it aired earlier this morning. I don't have access to watch Tucker today, or was it Carlson today, or whatever the show is called. But yeah, man, that's just amazing to me that the story is able to come back regardless of who the messenger is. The message is still on point. So that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to say about that. Any sort of last words about the story being sort of life being pumped back into the story as far as publicly in the public eye?
Yeah. One thing I noticed, and this actually goes to show the validity of what Tara said. Now, there is documented evidence that women will sometimes, out of fear, change their story because their fear of the repercussions that may happen to them. This is true. But since coming out about this story, Tara Reade's story has stayed the same the entire time, every single time without missing a beat. And so that goes to show, look, you gotta believe her. Because the thing is that Joe Biden has displayed this same type of character for a long time. And it's kind of ironic that he would pass the Violence Against Women Act and then violate a woman. It's ironic that somebody of his caliber would do such a thing. Sounds to me like the Violence Against Women Act was actually a cover to make him seem like he was safe. That's what it sounds like to me. Sounds like this new bill is another cover to make him seem like he's safe. The thing is that he's trying to prove something that's not true. He's trying to prove that he's a safe man when people who have heard Tara Reade's story, we know he's not. So I think I just want to give, props to Tara for telling her story, because that's really something damaging to the inner person, especially. And for her to have to relive it over and over in order to get this story out, and then being demonized and then being judged and being vilified in the media and by some people on the left, unfortunately, it is disheartening and it is heartbreaking. And so I just want to, let her know, great job on being outspoken and vocal about what happened to you. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I just kind of second everything that you mentioned there, JB. Now the story with Bree interviews Ralph Nader, and Ralph Nader calls out the squad. We're gonna have to push that somewhere else because I've reached my hard out time, JB.
Okay.
So let's do our closing stuff. What's going on with you? When can people see you again? What's going on with JB? And then I'll give my closing remarks.
So no Sabi and JB show this Thursday. I got something I got to take care of on Thursday, but I think I'm doing a show with Indigo Let on Thursday on my channel. Earlier in the day, we're going to be talking about activism from a socialist perspective, trans activism. And then I will also be doing my show next Tuesday. I'll be talking about the video that I'm forgetting his name. Neo's algorithm put out. I'll be giving my reaction to that on my channel. I will also be talking about the article that came out back then in 2012 about how the more wealth that people accumulate, the less compassion they have. And I'll also be talking about a recent story that came out that the schools across the country are now forcing our children to join junior ROTC in order to propel more kids into the military. Industrial. Yes. So I'll be talking about that all next week on my show. Stay tuned, and I can share my channel in the chat, but also I think we have a tip on Rockfin. If you want me to cover it, I can cover it.
Yeah, if you can cover that, sir. I know you're good with the Rockfin tips, sir.
Sure.
So let's shout out Rockfin. 1 second, everybody.
Nancy Strickland, thank you for the tip on Rockfin, says, I wish we had thousands of Kshama Sawants all across this country. Love your work, RBN. And I'm just checking to see if we have another tip on Rockfin. No, but there's a lot of comments and support. And there's one from Rory O'Neill. One love. Thank you so much for commenting, Tom. As well as Denver. Thank you so very much for all your comments on Rockfin. And then I think we had a couple of super chats as well.
Okay.
You see. Okay. Reality Revolution says, yay, JB doing foreign policy, doing our foreign comrades justice. Thank you so very much. And then Jay Schmidt, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, Nick is funny AF. You said a few days ago when you read Marx for the first time, you felt it was what you always believed. The same for me. Solidarity from Sweden. Thank you so much. Good to see you from Sweden as well.
I think that could probably be describe a lot of people, like, because it's like, man, this is so much of what I was feeling. All right, so for me, tomorrow is Wednesday, so back Nick and CJ, or actually might be you left shit out. Nick said that he's not sure he'll be out tomorrow, so I don't know what stories are out. I haven't been on Twitter today because I had a busy day today. Got that at the interview with the university class with Professor Zunkas today, and then had the interview. So I have to go on Twitter and see what is even going on. But maybe we'll cover the Brianna Joy Gray with Ralph Nader, and Ralph Nader calling out the squad. Well, maybe we'll cover that. But outside of that, make sure you join our Substack on your way out. We'll be sending a brand new Discord link later today. So for those that just recently joined our Substack, we'll be sending out a brand new Discord link later this evening. So make sure you join our Substack in order to get that link. Also, like the stream on your way out. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be our closeout video. JB, it's been great. Next time, we'll see you next Tuesday for RBN Live. I think Rome and Sabby will be with us next week. So can't wait till next week. Everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Appeal to a country that doesn't have a moral conscience. The question becomes that when white people feel serious and angry and upset about abortion, they come out in the thousands up to the millions to say, this is what we believe about abortion. Where is the white outcry against white racism that murders African people all around this entire globe? It doesn't exist. So who are these white good people? I want to meet them. I want to see them. I feel it's not enough.
But that might be all we can give.
No. And guess what? I don't work with all I can get. What I work with is what I have. Listen, you have to have some confidence in the power of African people amongst ourselves to establish a foundation. We have. We have it. We have utter chaos in our cities, and you got to say that. You can have a program. I'm not saying we've built a lot of institutions, and those institutions have not been effective. The majority of millions of African youth in this country are dying mentally, dying spiritually, dying emotionally, dying academically. And you may have a program, Mr. Brown may have a program, but what we got to talk about is an American government that tracks millions of African people who don't go to your program, don't go to Brown's program. Millions of African people, not only here, but all around the world. And if we are not honest enough to say who are our friends, who are our enemies, to know what a friend is, to know what an enemy is, we will constantly be trying to get into people's parties, to shake our butts with them, to get them to like us. And that's not the question. The question is, what can we build amongst ourselves to secure ourselves from our enemies so that we will be able to survive into the future?
Mayor Kelly.
Mayor, enough to know that if I walk out Washington, D.C. tonight, some black kid in Washington, D.C. is blowing off another black kid's head for repairing sneakers because the institutions that we're talking about, not the things that we hold up to say, look, this is one example. The institutions that we're talking about are not saving the minds of those African children.